Pegasus Bridge Cafe.
In 500 yards,
this is
to roundabout, take second exit on route to cable D514.
This is the bridge that's replaced it. So this bridge has replaced the original Pegasus Bridge. Oh, I've got a fucking clue where it's taking me. We're at the Pegasus Bridge Museum. Have a look at the bridge. It's been moved from its original place. So we'll be taking a look inside here.
Hitherto undreamed of in any amphibious operation. Like many great enterprises, it was made up of numerous smaller independent plans. One of these was the assault by the British 6th Airborne Division. It was an assault ordered directly by Field Marshal Montgomery, and it fell to General Richard Gale and his officers and men to plan and execute it. General Richard's mission was to secure the east or left flank of the Allied landings. This left flank had to be seized before the main seaborne assault and then consolidated and defended. It would eventually form the hinge on which the entire Allied force would pivot as it broke out of the beachhead to sweep on to Paris, Brussels, Antwerp, the Rhine, and eventually into Germany. What the 6th Airborne Division achieved in those early hours and days of the invasion must never be forgotten. And it is to them, and particularly to those who fell in that great enterprise, that the Pegasus Memorial and this short film are dedicated.
The image is always very powerful. It always brings us back to the price for our freedom. June 2000, the 6th Airborne escorted the inauguration of the Pegasus Memorial under the orders of Prince Charles.
C'est pour moi un grand plaisir que d'être de retour en Normandie et en ma qualité de colonel en chef du Parachute Regiment, une joie particulière que de m'y retrouver sur le lieu même d'un des hauts faits de la 6e division aéroportée.
The future king attended the ceremonies for the 60th anniversary for D-Day 2004. This time at the Ranville Museum, it's a replica of a horse glider which contributes towards the debt of gratitude Normandy owes to the heroes from Great Britain and Canada. The day before D-Day, here is the distinctive armada of horse gliders and the commander of the 6th Airborne Division, Major General Gale. He planned the night crossing which would lead to a settling of scores. Firstly will be the events of the capture of 2 bridges, intact, but also a story of bridges to destroy. There are 5 of them on the River Dive. After that, the German battery at Merville will have to be neutralized. Everything has to be prepared to the utmost detail. The first meeting will be just after midnight in Benouville and at Ranville. The coup de main operation was rehearsed with blank ammunition, props and extras, which were essential as most men had never had prior experience with weaponry. Good reason to leave after a good, maybe last cup of tea. Each unit boarded with war correspondents. The BBC broadcasted a hastily produced programme covering this night from 5th to the 6th of June 1944.
This is Chester Wilmot broadcasting from a glider bound for France and invasion. The men who are sitting on the benches in the back of the glider are not wondering whether the parachutists have succeeded in seizing the ground on which we're going to land. But if they are worried about it, of it. But a little while ago when I moved back down the glider, I found the fellows at the end would be.
Meanwhile, the perfectly timed arrival at the Benouville Bridge is the result of many hours of training.
I could see the target, the moon was on it, I could see the bridge, I could see the whites of their eyes almost, and I knew bloody well we were going to make it, and by God we did. I was delighted.
There was no firing. We had complete surprise. And that moment I will never, never forget. And I relive it every time I go back to France now for the anniversaries of our landings.
The first pictures of the captured bridges are breathtaking. The gliders landed exactly on target. The coup de main operation cost 1 life and 2 wounded. From now on, this bridge will always be known as Pegasus Bridge. However, for the parachutists, the mission was a much more delicate affair. Everything was rehearsed on British soil. However, the night became a nightmare. Men are scattered by strong winds and from the flak of anti-aircraft defense batteries. In order to capture the Merville battery, the men of the 9th Battalion numbered just 150 of the planned 650. Only half of those present would remain standing after a bloody hand-to-hand fight, but they never wavered.
No, never. I'm a parachutist and I'm Irish. We never retreat.
Early that morning, 177 Frenchmen led by Philippe Kieffer accompanied the landing of Lord Lovat's commandos on Sword Beach. They'll hear later of the heavy sacrifice of 9th Battalion, who prepared the way for them through Benouville. It is at this moment that fiction merged with reality during the shooting of the cult film The Longest Day. This is where, about 15 years later, Lord Lovat plays his own role. Where Major Howard made a briefing to his stand-in Richard Todd, a veteran himself. Where Lord Lovat apologises once again to Major Howard for the slight delay in making the meeting point. And where finally, this same Lord Lovat victoriously accompanies his faithful piper, Bill Millin, crossing Pegasus Bridge. Victory. General Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, thought pensively about it that morning from his headquarters in southern England. Not all the objectives were achieved, but the effect of surprise had proved vital.
Ein Datum von weltgeschichtlicher Bedeutung.
These are the pictures of the Orne estuary that are shown in German cinemas. The commentator explains that the Allied attempt at landing has just been thrown back into the sea. On the spot, things are very different. For example, the 21st Panzer Division, operational in the area. This German armoured division will be waiting for hours for an order to counterattack.
All little streets, villages, orchards and so on, so we could start a night attack. And this order wasn't known to us. So we stood all the time until the afternoon of the 6th.
And as the Allies moved forward on D-Day, Adolf Hitler slept. Despite the critical situation, no one dares wake him. The 6th Airborne will still have to hold the bridgehead and get prepared to confront the inevitable counterattack from the enemy. Bourville, Onfreville, the coast of Bréville, these small, quiet Norman villages will become both pivotal and sanctuaries during the engagements of the 6th Airborne Division. At the end of the afternoon of June 6th, more than 100 gliders will be towed and released above the Orne estuary. Seen from the sky, these are the craters left by the Allied bombardments of that day. On the ground, the fleet of gliders helps us understand why the 6th Airborne alone lost 4,000 killed, wounded, or missing in action. In mid-June, the 6th Airborne definitively controls the entire east sector of the Orne River, a whole sector in ruins, like much of Normandy. Despite his age at 48, General Gale is already a veteran of World War I, of the Battle of the Somme. This is the second time he helped France push the Germans back from her land. If the civilian population paid a heavy price for the liberation, they have been forever grateful. And they express it with great simplicity to General Montgomery, the Commander-in-Chief of the British. But there remain many battles ahead for the 6th Airborne Division. The end of the Normandy campaign, with the offensive to the Seine River in August, the bloody battle in the Ardennes, and the crossing of the Rhine. Hardly time to fraternize with the Norman people. The 6th Airborne Division will be rested in September 1944. But before leaving, a few soldiers will again become farmers, just for harvest time, on the few fields left intact after the violent deluge of war. The picture of true freedom.
The war is over, thank God. We haven't had another one, and please God we don't have another. Our fallen comrades. Fallen comrades.
In here's an homemade radio, so the locals could listen to broadcasts. That is a gas mask, which is French. There's ration cards because food was scarce. The pen is a pistol pen, which we resistance might have used, and also a one-shot gun as well. The documents behind are what the RAF dropped for propaganda. Got some German weaponry, dagger, machine guns, maps, Oh, that's a Luger. Or is that a Luger? I think it's that one. Some of the equipment that the airborne troops carried. And that's the Pegasus insignia. This is the vest that the troops used to wear to regulate body temperature. Apparently they weren't very efficient. These are the Ruperts, the diversionary parachutists that they dropped to make the Germans think we were somewhere else, and the aluminium foil that they used to put the Germans off on the radar. Camera. Standard issue for the airborne troops for the landing. And today. It's a Piat Lance grenade, stem gun, Browning, Albion, Webley, mortar. And some of the kit that we would have used. Motorbike look. Mortar. Jeep with his Jeep. Folding push bike on the front. Rain gun. And all the kit would have been packed into these gliders like that, so the front opens and they can get their small vehicles in. This is from the Army Chaplain. There's a few personal belongings on some of the powers. There's a famous piper off the Lonely Stay. There's his pipes. I think the Germans thought he was a nut. think he was marching up and down the beach at one bit, playing his pipes, and the Germans didn't shoot at him because they thought he was just a lunatic. Revel Church was completely destroyed, and this air canister was left found hanging around, and then he used to use that as a church bell while he got another one. As you remember, different coloured parachutes for whatever they were carrying were dropped in these containers, canisters. Red weapon, blue fuel, yellow medical supplies, white miscellaneous equipment. And these would be on the bottom of them. These models were made before D-Day and were used for how they were going to demolish the bridges. Dogs were also used and were trained and were dropped with a parachute men, and then they served detecting mines and doing patrol duties. What's that power dog called? Glenn. Parachutist in full jumpsuit, and there he is in all the kit. There's the infamous Pegasus Bridge with the British troops on one side charging the bridge, and the Germans on the other. There's some pictures of the gliders, various states. That's a model of the fuselage for a glider, and there's all these different weights because the pilot had to calculate the weight of all the men, all the materials and everything, and then balance the plane out. So here's a glider calculation this Major John Howard made in 1944.
Un film en français va être lancé au centre du musée.
Quelle langue?
Français.
Oh.
So this is what they used. So everything had to be balanced out. The weight of the men, materials, everything. So they could put in the right place. It's Major Terrence, and there's his medals and mascot that he had, and his sword at the back. I'm presuming that's a flag that he kept. There's plenty of medals. There's a few surgical bits and pieces. Not so keen on the needle. On the 1st of June 1944, a pigeon, number NURP 41SP219, later named the Duke of Normandy, was incarcerated into a small cylinder cardboard container and then imprisoned until released about 6 o'clock on the 6th of June 1944 to announce the capture of the guns of Melville. His mentor was the signals officer Lieutenant Loring, and prior to this, planning the container with the pigeon was strapped to the front of the equipment and under his jump smock. And there's a picture of him there. There's the box that the pigeon was put in. So not all communications were what would have been modern then.
La cité d'abord accompagne l'inauguration du démocrate Pegasus sous les ordres du prince de Galles.
There's a sign that was put up soon after the bridge was taken, or soon after the war, and it says the 6th Airborne Division, who landed near the bridge of the 5th of June 1944 as a spearhead to the Allied Army's liberation. A few bits that would have been part of the glider, a joystick, some instruments.
Chaque unité embarcation reconnait correspondant d'enquête et la BBC, la radio anglaise va pouvoir mettre rapidement sur les ondes un document exceptionnel, enregistré cette nuit du 5.
There's quite a cool model of the bridge.
Pendant ce temps, l'arrivée sur le pont de Pégasus de temps d'or.
No, it's not operating. It is what would have been a working model of Pegasus Bridge, but it's not actually operating. Christine's playing with it, so it'll be bust forever now. Come outside and there's the famous bridge itself. So it was moved here as a memorial. It was Prince Charles' idea to do that. I think otherwise it might have been lost forever. And a few other bits and pieces. So, take a look at the gun. It's a 5.3 inch gun. Standard medium gun of the British Army for 1944. This is what's called a Centaur tank. This one's codenamed Vidette by its crew. It served in the 5th Independent Battery of the Royal Marines Armoured Support Group. The tank was immobilised by German gunfire after landing on Sword Beach with commando forces. This is Brigadier James Hill, DSO MC. James Hill is a founder of the Parachute Regiment, one of the most experienced Allied airborne commanders. Commissioned into the Royal Fusiliers in 1931, served in France in 1940, and one of the last British soldiers to be evacuated from Dunkirk. And there's a field gun. There's a Pegasus Bridge. As you can see on the photograph, there's the glider there in the background, so it landed very close to where the bridge was. This is a 17-pounder anti-tank gun. Needed a crew of 5 to operate it. This memorial is dedicated to the men of the Coupe de Main glider operation who spearheaded the entire D-Day invasion. So what you've got is the plane it was pulled it, and then you've glider number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and all the men that were on them. And here's an actual glider, so I think we can get to have a look inside. Oh, can't actually get into it, but we can have a look and see what it looks like. So pilots would have sat up there, and then crew and everybody else down here. I presume they took the seats out for if they were putting in things like jeeps and other objects, gun, artillery and such like, but they were only made of wood, were very basic. Although I think this is a mock-up. This is a replica. I don't know if there's any that actually exist, but it is a full-scale replica of the glider. The giveaway for it is the very front bit in the cockpit where the joysticks are. They're wood, and as we saw inside, they weren't. They were metal. Housed in this building is a real one of what's left of it. You can't actually go in. I think it's there to be preserved, really, I suppose, and it's I'll hold my camera against the glass so you get a better perspective of it. It's pretty destroyed now. But there they were. They're just made out of what looks like a thin ply. And in fact they towed these across, these gliders, released them, and then they basically crash landed them. Let's have a look round there, see if we can see inside, looking through it. So I can't really pull back and show you a distance shot, but that's looking through. So this would have been split at this end, and then they would have been able to put into it things like men and ammunition, jeeps, guns, all sorts of things like that. Brilliant. Very basic, very effective. There is some pictures and information all about the glider. There it was. I didn't even know it had a gunner. Came with thermos flasks and a sanitary tube. Wow. I think this is pretty much the same picture. And these are showing the various parts. Like this section is that piece at the top there, pressure head, and this section, if you follow the line up, is that piece there, and this section. So like this, we follow it up, is up there in the yellow, underneath the ring, and undercarries piece there. Last but not least, this piece is there, the end bit of the wing. There's a few different gliders, German, Russian, ours, English, American, Japanese, I suppose French, American, Japanese, American, German, German. Oh yeah, that one is English. Here we've got a model of what was a Bailey Bridge. Bailey Bridge was a temporary bridge. I think the Royal Engineers used to come along and then they would build these across the rivers. So they were temporary bridges. Here's some of the kit that came in the boxes for building it. I think this is, this must be a model stuff. Can't be real, can it? And there's a picture of one being laid out. And here's a Bailey Bridge. Which the Royal Engineers would have put up to get across to the other side, from one side of the river to the other, quickly, if there was a bridge had been already blown up, so it could keep advancing quickly. There we go, parts of a Bailey Bridge. This one was built in 1944 by the Royal Engineers over one of the waterways in this area. After the war in 1950, the French civil engineers dismantled it and rebuilt it in the commune of Beaumay, between Falaise and Saint-Père-du-Dives, the hamlet of Campy, to allow the crossing of the river Dives. It remained there until January 2001, when it was replaced by a modern structure. The commune of Beaumay suggested it presented a historical bridge to the memorial Pegasus, where it was installed in 2002. So this bridge, even though it was put up and used in the war, was continually being used for an awful long time afterwards, which I suppose is testament to how good it actually was. This is how it was built. So, three principles of the Bailey Bridge. The panels, when assembled, they form the two sides of the bridge, each panel made 10 feet long. Then the transoms linking the panels 2 by 2 in order to lock the two sides walls together. And then the roadway made of steel elements, stringers placed on top of the transom to cover with wooden planks. Brilliant. There we go. There's Pegasus Bridge again. So the Allies landed on this, what would have been this side, and then crossed the bridge to that side. So we'll take a walk across it. So in effect, following the footsteps of those airborne troops in 1944 on the what was the evening of June the 5th when they were here. So just before the D-Day landings. This is the direction they crossed, although the bridge is not in the right place anymore. But and there's the walkway up the sides. Brilliant. Don't know if there's a walkway on the other side, possibly, and the walkway's up on the opposite side. Fantastic. So the gliders would have landed into this marshland at the back here. The original position of the bridge is where the new one is. I don't know if you can just see that in the background. over there, just behind that building, see the top of it. This is a Swedish gun that we used to use, so a Swedish style gun, Bofors they called it. It was easy to manoeuvre apparently with them wheels at the front and the back, and the wheels could easily be removed if needed be. Anti-aircraft. This is the M45 quad mount. Consists of 4 12.7mm Browning machine guns. Very effective against low-flying aircraft. Was often mounted on a vehicle. Later in the war, when there was less attacks from the air from the Luftwaffe, they used it for anti-personnel. So in effect, basically, they used it to shoot at people with, rather than aircraft. This half-track, although it's all up in American colours, was actually used by British troops on Sword Beach, on D-Day and on the D-Day landings, this particular one. It was used exclusively by all Allied nations. There were over 41,000 of these. This is the new bridge, the bridge that replaced it. I think what they've tried to do is do the best to copy it or make it pretty much the same. So, Ham and Jam were the code words used by Major Howard's men to signal that the two bridges had been captured. The winged horse Pegasus was the emblem of the 6th Airborne Division. So, and that's the new bridge that's replaced it. The gliders would have landed around here. So we'll have a look at the memorials. This is a Liberty tree. This was planted and was planted there for those that fought and gave their lives for liberty. Okay, the horse glider of Major Howard of the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry, who commanded the operation to capture the bridge, landed on this spot, together with Lieutenant Hay, Butheridge, and 28 soldiers at 1600 hours. 16 hours, just after midnight. That's Major Howard. So they landed within, what, 30 metres of the bridge. The ground is kind of like a marshland, so I presume that would have given them some protection when the gliders kind of sunk into the mud to stop it. There's a, just thought I'd put that on, there's a heron. I think it's a heron. Nesting. Alright. Don't know what it is. Crane maybe? And the glider of Lieutenant Smith landed at this spot 2 minutes after at 00:18. All these 3 gliders were within a very, very short distance of each other, 20, 30 feet. Absolutely fantastic flying. This was Lieutenant Wood's glider carrying Captain Nelson, and this arrived at 017, so at 0017, so they were all landed within a minute of each other for these three gliders. The ground would have been very difficult terrain and marshy. And there's our whatever it is. Heron, we think. Possibly not. Or a stork. Heron, stork, not sure. If you take into account the wingspan of each of those three planes on there, they must have landed pretty much tip to tip. I'm not sure where the other three gliders landed. It was probably in the marshed area itself in there somewhere, which would be difficult to mark. But those three there, all within 3 minutes, is I think fantastic feat. Then I suppose it was down to storming the bridge, and a memorial right in front of the bridge. There you go. 6th June 1944. There's where the gliders landed, and there's the bridge. The gun emplacement here must have been a German gun emplacement, I'm assuming, because that is a guess. Might not be. Who knows? We're taking a walk across now, across the river, over the bridge, which is I think the principle of it and the look of it is very much the same. You can see why it was so strategic, because if you could get rid of all the other bridges, it made it very difficult for the Germans to get across to the other side of this river, because just beyond the river on this side, further round, is Sword Beach. So they would have been able to attack on the flanks. So it was imperative that this was taken to prevent the Germans from getting any sort of artillery or anything across, and then this bridge had to be held. There's the calf. There's the sign that replaced the one that we was looking at earlier, which is the original Pegasus Bridge. What makes the cafe famous? This was the first house to be liberated on the 5th of June 1944. This cafe. Well, there's what is Sword Beach, and right over the guy has arrived onto the beach. See if we can zoom right on. British came in, so the ships would have come in from there, obviously from that direction, and then the British would have landed on here. And just a bit further down the coast is where the Pegasus Bridge was protecting the flank of the Allies. And that way takes you to the likes of Omaha, Juneau,